So if you look into your template, your Nexagram template, and in the layout, we all know this layout is something you extend from, right? Everywhere. So every page you go to, you will actually load this, and then the page content will go into here, right? So maybe just for your future reference, maybe you can say page content starts here, and then page content ends here, right? So everything that goes into the content block is whatever you put in your form and all the yada yada. So here maybe you can put navbar and you can put a footer, okay? So what happened is the CSS and JS are loaded from something looks like this, okay? So before I talk about how is this working, first let's look at a normal approach of linking a CSS. Let's just pretend instead of writing this weird thing here, we just say link a CSS file. Okay, so do you know where can you write your CSS files by default?
Static.
In static. Oh, how do you guys know about that? You guess. So if you refer to the Flask documentation, it does tell you about static. Okay, so it says by default it will always look for your files in the static folder. If you really dislike the word static, you can actually change it when you first start the app. You can actually change it static files, right? You can actually change it in my gosh. Oh no.
If you go back to that.
He says, for more information, have a look at Flask documentation. Thank you. Static. Here, static folder. This one. So if you want to change it from static to something else, when you in your app.py, here is where you can change it. You can say static folder is going to be assets, for example. Then now it won't look into static. Okay, so all these things are actually customizable, and it's all in the documentation. So please don't treat it as a law or a magic that is always like that. Okay, so if you know everything will look in static, that means technically in the static folder, this is static folder, right? I can just create a new file. Let's say this is my css.css. Okay, and then let's say I put my CSS here, color is red, and here I can just link it to just my css.css because it will look into static. Okay, of course, Jinja also provided you something like this that you can use, which is like that, and then the file name is my css.css if you prefer that. I think this is safer because maybe your static folder is moved or something. Okay, I'm not too sure. Okay, so let's come back to this point. What's wrong with this? There are many points that's wrong with doing this. Okay, so let's say I have a couple, right? In the static, I also have this is, let's say, custom bootstrap. Okay, and I also link it there. Okay, can you come out with a couple of problem with linking CSS like this? I have never talked about them, but can you try and think?
Overriding?
Override what? That's fine. The bottom one will override the top one, so I can still have control. So I change that. What are the problems? Use your imagination.
Not override, but the contrasting information.
Huh?
What if you
Cache.
I don't know.
Oh, so even if you change it.
Yeah. Number one problem is cache. Every time you visit a website, let's say you have deployed this website and a user come to your website, the browser will have to make a request for this CSS and this CSS, and this CSS is cached in your computer. Subsequent visit to the same website would not re-download this CSS, which means if after someone has visited my website and then I decided to change the body color to blue, he will not see it at blue unless he change computer, unless he go incognito mode. Okay? This is a very dangerous issue. Alright. So how do you go about that? You have to add timestamps. So that means each time I change my CSS, I will rename this as change it to unique. Let's say this is now version 2. And then I come here and say this is now version 2. Okay? This way, if the user revisit my website, the browser will see the CSS file is different, the file name is different, it will re-download it. Okay? So number one, time. So we just mentioned this. Number issue, we need timestamp for CSS or even JS file names. Okay? File names. Secondly, it is just CSS, right? I cannot use a better version of CSS. For example, SCSS. For example, SCSS. For example, that's all I know. Less is better than CSS. Okay, less is also another way for writing styling, but that compiles into CSS. So these are all the things we call preprocessor. Okay, so the next thing is about preprocessor. Okay, so there are preprocessors such as out there are a lot of preprocessor. For example, if you dislike JavaScript in curly braces, you can go and learn something called CoffeeScript. CoffeeScript, you write CoffeeScript, it gets compiled into JavaScript. So let me show you what CoffeeScript looks like. Please don't do this. I'm just telling you. There's no point learning this. On the left is CoffeeScript. On the right is JavaScript. You see how it looks like Python now. There's no curly braces, so it becomes indentation based. Okay, so for whatever reason this appears to you, you can use this, but don't show it to me. Okay, so let's say you want to use preprocessors like that, and you want to use SCSS that gets compiled into CSS. Okay, so that can correspond to JS. You want to use preprocessors like that, does it mean that you can just say, hey, let me use CoffeeScript? So I will just link script src to my script.coffee because the extension is coffee. Do you think the browser understands CoffeeScript? No. So you still have to find a way to compile this into JS. And you don't want to do it manually each time you write some CoffeeScript, then you have to run some commands, get the JS, copy and paste into the JS, right? So you need that. If you need that kind of pre-processing, then you will also cannot use this kind of approach for linking and assets. Okay. What else? Is that all? We can't use preprocessors such as, okay. And thirdly is minification, post-processing. We can't do post-processing. What kind of post-processing you need for your CSS? Huh? I just said it just now. Minification of code, right? You want to minify the CSS or JS codes. Why? Because you do not want your users to download all the extra byte size, the empty spaces, the extra new lines, your comments, right? Computer doesn't need to care about those. So you need minification. You also maybe want some vendor prefix. Remember vendor prefix in your CSS. So for example, if you are using the animation, you have to do Moz animation for Mozilla. Then you have to do all these vendor prefix for different browser. So sometimes you can just use some sort of library will help you automatically add CSS vendor prefix. Okay, so that should be enough reasons of why this kind of linking of assets is not sufficient, right? Okay, so how do we go about solving that? So almost all web framework will come with some sort of asset pipeline, okay? As in a pipeline where all the assets will go in and then come out differently, okay? So in this case, we are going to use something called flask-assets. It is already pre-installed in your this template. If you check your requirement.txt, you already see flask-assets. Okay, so how does flask-assets work? Obviously, I'll just say read the docs, but since most of you wouldn't, I will quickly give you some explanation. So it allows you to use this thing called bundle, where it will bundle all these files together, and then you can apply a filter. So this filter is where the post-processing or pre-processing comes in, okay, and then it will output into this file. Quite straightforward, right? So JSMin is a filter that will minify the JavaScript code. Okay, so if you look into your so I will remove this. Okay, so now we know this doesn't work. So if you look into your current layout, it is linked like that. So what it means is that it will look for the bundle prepared by flask-assets that is being called home_css or home_js. And because this is something that we consider as a utility, so we actually throw it under the folder called util, and then inside the utility there is a assets.py. Okay, if you do not know where to look for it, just Command P or Control P, type assets.py, and you should be looking at this one. So this whole bundle then become a dictionary, and we actually import this into the do we import bundle anywhere? Into the init, okay? So obviously, you can't just expect this to get put into the app automatically. So the bundle that we created was then registered like this, okay? And then you also need this environment and throw the app in, okay? So technically, all the lines are this. I'll put it here, okay? So using flask-assets, number one, create bundle, okay, using the bundle function. And then secondly, you have to create these assets using the environment, also come from the flask-assets library, and app is your app, right? You all have app, and then you register. So these are all the three things you need to do, and it has already been done for you. But if you're interested, this is what it has done. So now, how do we use it? So if you look into it, Home.js and Home.css had already bundled lots of stuff. Has any of you go and input Bootstrap again? Did all of you go and install Bootstrap again? You actually do not, right? Have you noticed Bootstrap has already been installed for you? How do you know? How do you figure that out in the first place? In the README. Oh, nice. See, documentation, that's why it's so important. In the README is one. Or maybe when you're writing all the Bootstrap classes, you also notice all the CSS in the inspector, right? So this is the reason. Because by default, we already put in CSS under CSS folder, vendor folder, and then Bootstrap, which is here. Let me just close everything. Close, 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 close. Okay, so under here, CSS vendor, there's already this Bootstrap CSS. So we already download the source code of Bootstrap, and this is already minified for you. And also Bootstrap requires JavaScript, everything is here, okay? So you understand why you have all these things, because let's just talk about the JS part. The JS is simple. All this JavaScript bundled together, go through a filter called JSMin, output where?
Gen/home.
Thank you. Where is gen/home? Here. Do you also notice in your git ignore, you ignore gen? Okay, this is something we do not need to make it push onto the GitHub. This is something that when you deploy the code, it will immediately compile and generate for you. Okay, so we do not need to push this, but rather flask-asset whenever you do flask run. Okay, when you do flask run, flask-assets will look through these files. If there's any changes, it will regenerate a new gen. And so what you need to link is actually this JS. And in order to make you easily link this without changing the version number each time, that's why you come out with this one. So that's why you link it like that. Is that okay? So this asset URL here refers to this gen/home with a version. Okay, so remember the version, this is what the timestamp is for. So let me show you. So if in my custom, so right now in my app, right, there's a custom JS where it's being bundled into it. If I go to the custom JS, there's nothing in there, right? So if I check my inspector, you will notice that it is linking the JavaScript is gen home dot, this is the timestamp, this is a version number. Okay, so if I just refresh, it is still the 64EDB1AD, right? It doesn't change. I refresh again, it is always linking that same thing. But the moment I add something into my custom JS, let's say alert, are you sleeping? Okay, and then I come here, I refresh, notice how the version number is changed. Okay, so this is also another important point. The version number only changes if you change any of the files that is being listened here. Okay, cool. So JS part is, so if you want to add a new files, all you have to do is, let's say if I want to have a new JS file here, okay, I create, maybe this JS file is for handling the following, okay, so I call it follow.js, and so this is, I console.log some stuff here, okay, follow logic in JS. So all I have to do is put it here, JS/ because it's under the static JS folder, right? So JS/follow.js, and this one will get compiled as well. Okay, so if I now refresh, you will notice that it will take slightly longer time if you have a lot of CSS, and this is in. Okay, all good. So what does the JS mean filter does? So if you look into flask-assets filter, which is here, filter, they actually gives you a bunch of filter that you can use, built-in filters. Okay, you can even write your own filters. So these are all the built-in filters that is included in JSmin. Everything on the left. Okay, so what we are using here is we just want a JavaScript compressor. So if you click here, it says you can use rjsmin, uejs, closure.js, and this is what we are using. So if you want to use this, you need to make sure you pip install JSmin. So this is also where if you check your requirement.txt, we already pre-installed JSmin for you. Okay, so it's not magically done by the flask-assets. The flask-assets still need to use third-party filter to apply your stuffs. Okay, so if for whatever reason you want CoffeeScript, right? So then you can pip install CoffeeScript, and then you change this, filter to CoffeeScript, and now all these things you write your coffee. Okay.
What if you use CoffeeScript and then you filter it into JavaScript, and then from JavaScript to JSmin?
You probably need multiple bundles for that.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure you can do it. I've never done it. Also, what's the point? Okay. So JavaScript is simple. Now let's talk about SCSS. Okay. So this by default it only gives you CSS min, which is just minified CSS, and that is super lame. Okay. As a full stack developer, you cannot call yourself a full stack developer if you do not know what is SCSS. Okay. So SCSS has a very nice name. It's called, I don't know, Super CSS. Syntactically awesome style sheets. It's called SAS, SASS. SASS comes with two syntax that you can use. SCSS syntax or SASS syntax. The SCSS syntax is with the curly braces. The SASS syntax is with indentation. Okay? Wait. Okay, right. So, on the right side is what you have right. Oh, yeah. This indentation is wrong, man. On the right side is what you have been writing, just normal CSS. Or left or right, the left and the middle one is what you can pick. I always use SCSS because I'm more used to the curly braces. Also notice that SCSS is completely backward compatible with CSS. So even if you use SCSS file, but you write normal CSS in it, it will still understand. Okay? So in SCSS, then you gain things like variable, right? You can define variables and then pass it down. Okay, this is something I feel like is super important for color. Okay, and a more important thing is you can nest. So instead of writing A and then A hover, you can write A and then inside there you say N hover. Okay, so this will be chained together. Okay, so yeah, that's in style component. So if you Google SCSS to CSS, you can actually start. I will show you some difference. Okay, so for example, I can say primary color is okay, and then let's say I have a page that is a login page. I wrap the whole login page in this div, and then inside the div I have h1. I don't have to give the h1 a class anymore. You see that? Because this h1 will not accidentally get selected by. I would not accidentally select other h1 because there's only one login page. Okay, so if let's say I have a h1, I can say the h1 color is primary. I can also say, let's say there's some p dot subtitle, the font size is 0.9 em, right? If you see, this is the CSS result. Okay, it doesn't look like much when it's like that, but imagine you have a lot of things like login page has some padding 10 pixel, and then you have to repeat. Okay, so let's say in the subtitle, then there is when I hover on the subtitle, I will transform maybe scale by 1.1. Okay, see?
CSS looks like it's easier to read.
CSS looks like it's easier to read. Now you try and write that. It's a lot of repetition. It's not easy to read, guys. This is a simple CSS, that's why you feel like it's easy to read. If I have so many things inside login page, then it's just going to. And when you're writing CSS, trust me, you wouldn't write like that. You will be, just select H1 lah. Right? Or then you'll be, H1 cannot. H1 is duplicate. I mean, it will select other H1 I don't want. And you will start adding more and more classes. The problem with that is you have so many class names on all your HTML. You do not want to start adding class for every div. I know that's what you all do, right? Oh, I need to select this H1, let me call it title. Oh, but no, title is taken. This is a title only for login page. Let me call it login page title. Makes sense. Tell that to the next year. Next year when you look back to your code, you'll be like, no, why did I do that? Because why do you make it unnecessarily complicated? By doing this, I do not even have to give the H1 any class or any ID.
So basically SCSS, you can nest it.
It's easier to write.
And it makes it
Oh, okay, sorry. SCSS has a lot. You can also do function.
Yeah, so can you show like functions like justify content center?
Okay,
Whoa, you can say.
correct. So let's say you always need to repeat this. What's that thing we always repeat? Display flex. Yay, flex, man, flex your muscle. Align items center. Okay, you always write this, right? And you're so sick of repeating this here and here and maybe right everywhere. Okay, let's say you need to repeat these two places, or maybe there's another div here. There's some section dot pics.
So how you put it under primary and it's all repeated?
So what do you do is in SCSS docs, again, it's all about documentation, guys. These are the things that you can do. So what we are looking for is, my goodness, how do I even mixing? Yeah, we are looking for mixing.
It's up on in the actual page.
Actual page.
Mixing. No, back.
It's written in that large paragraph.
Okay, never mind.
Here, right? Add rules. Add rules. Okay. There's something called mixing. So what mixing does is, if you set a function called reset list, a mixing called reset list, next time you can just include it anywhere else. So include and mixing. So what I can do is, this is the something that I always do, which is these 3 lines, right? So these 3 lines, so I just have to cut it out, and I create a mixing called, what do you call this? Flag center. Right. Okay, and then you just do that, and then you pass in there, and now you just have to do include flag center. So here you just include flag center. Include flag center. Nice.
Still a lot.
Is the CSS still easier to read? Excuse me. Alright, so what if you want to pass in parameters? You can even do that. You can even pass in parameters. Then that's where you use something called a function, I think. Is it function? You can even write function. Okay, you can even do loop. Okay, again that may be slightly overkill, but function sometimes is helpful for me because I always need to apply box shadow to a lot of things, and then I will write a function. But sometimes the box shadow color or the size is slightly different, so I write a function that has everything, but I can pass in a value to slightly change the size of my box shadow. Okay. It's up to you, however you want to use it, but I think mixing, include, and the variable are super nice. Nesting is super nice. The rest up to you. Okay, read the docs. It's quite nice. Okay, interpolation. Yeah. Oh, actually, mixing can also call. Wow, look at this. This is crazy. Even the class name can be generated dynamically from that. Okay. So alright, so now enough of that. How do you use it in your Flask? Okay, so in order to use it, first we have to look into the filter again. So remember just now the flask-assets, the flask-assets comes in with many filters, right? So we are looking for CSS compressor. So CSS means, what does it do? If you just read all the docs, it will tell you it's just minifying, cleaning, slimming. If you want to use less, you use this less filter. So I will just save you time and ask you to use this libsass. Super nice. So if you visit libsass, what libsass does is it will let you use SCSS. Okay, and then it has like whatever it support in the SCSS. Okay, so it will let you use SCSS and SCSS, up to you. So how do you use it? First, okay, so this is something that's not in your current code. Okay, what you do is, first we come here, we make sure we are in the right environment. Okay, I'm going to pip install libsass. I'm going to pip freeze. I'm going to flash run. No need first. Let me come back here. Okay.
That's if you do pip freeze requirements without the .txt, it still works.
Then you pip into something without a txt lah. You do this.
Yeah.
I just created a new file called requirements without txt, and it's in there.
Is that what I did? This after that, I thought it's inside.
Okay, so what are we going to do here is, like I said, SCSS is backward compatible. So even if you give me CSS, it's fine. Okay, but from now on, I'm not going to have one lame CSS there. Just put everything in. This is my recommendation. I hope you guys can consider. What I want is I will have a main.scss. That's all. This main.scss is going to import everything because SCSS you can import. Okay, so what I do is in the CSS folder, okay, I call this main.scss. Okay, you can call it whatever you want, doesn't matter. So in this main.scss, I'm not going to put any code in there. Okay, I'll make it empty. What I want here is I want to start importing. So you can have partial SCSS. So if in here I start creating files called, I always need a base. Okay, I'll make use underscore to differentiate this is a partial. I will also need a variables. Okay, and what I will do next is for each page I have, I will also create a file. So for example, this is for home page. This is for login page, or I call it just auth, because let's say I want to combine login, sign up together. So maybe I call it auth page, maybe. Okay, so now I have all this. What I do is in my main, I'm just going to import. So how do you import? You use alias import, and the sequence method. I will always load my variables first. Okay, you don't actually have to write the name anymore. So I will do this. So I'll import this. Then I will import base. Okay, then I will import home page. Then I'll import auth page. Okay, so while like this, now what I can do is in my variable, I'm going to start putting all the main color I want. For example, primary color is let's say 00BC. This is my favorite color. So I will then have light, maybe light 1, light 2, okay, or primary light 1, light 2, and then you can also use built-in functions such as lighten this by 5%, lighten this by 10%, like that.
This is SCSS function.
These are all SCSS functions.
So what you're doing is, so you have 4 files, variables.sss, base, home page, off page, and then what you do is you copy all the 6 entries and then you just import them. Right? But what if, so let's say variables has like a class name, and then the base one has the same class name.
Then the bottom one will override the top one. Also look at the specificity score. But in the variables, I will try. Actually in the variables, I will only have like mixing, box shadow. So like the one we love so much, flag center, I'll put it here, and then I'll put this here. Okay.
Wouldn't it make sense in your primary like 1 and 2 to put the primary variable inside the lightning function?
Where?
So where you've got like primary light 1 lightning,
Yeah.
and that color again, wouldn't it just make more sense to put in $sign primary instead of the color? Because if you then
You're right.
Primary.
You are absolutely. That's what I intended. Okay, like that. Yeah, you're right. So if you install the SCSS in here, they will also recognize, VS Code will recognize this is that. Okay. So text main again. Black text and white background is really ugly. I hope you notice that. So if your background is white, your text should be like dark gray instead of black. It looks very old school when you do black and white like that. So you can have like text like that, or maybe border, all your border color, all your border colors should be also unified, something like that. Okay, maybe I have some box shadow thing, shadow bottom, and then you do some box shadow code. Okay, all good. So now I have all this, and now it can be used by all the CSS underneath. Okay, base, right? Also, this is something a lot of people do not do, is they use this. My recommendation is this: all font size use EM, but you have only one place where you use pixel, in the HTML itself. Let me show you. If in the base, I set HTML font size is 16 pixel. Now every time I do EM, it's just the multiplier of the parent and the parent and the parent. So let's say one day you notice, hey, my entire website, the text is slightly too small or too big. You just have to change 1 pixel here and it saves you a lot of time. Seriously, I have so many times where we have to change the entire size of the entire page, and you have so many pixel and PT to fix. It's horrible. But if you just base everything on EM, then you can just change one place. Yeah.
Would you also use SCSS to create like a spacer, so that like if you ever have something that's like supposed to be a certain amount of weight, it could be like 3 times the spacer, or like 4 times the spacer, or like 1 times the spacer, and then it's always like a multiple of like 16 pixels, for example.
I think that's what bootstrap margin utilities is doing something like that. I'm not too sure. I get what you mean. I've never implemented something like that. The space I usually just hard code the value.
Yeah. No, it's just like when you design things, you usually use the same sort of like space in between things, or like a multiple of that space.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like evenly spaced rather than like 10 pixels for this and 15 for this. Yeah.
Well, that's in the display flexibility.
I don't know. It's more a design thing.
It's okay. I'll look into that. Actually, I'm quite curious about it. So maybe base is where I have like more, some of the utility class. Because it's a utility class, so I'm allowed to use important, right? Because I just want to apply it anywhere, anytime I want. Okay, and then the rest. So this is the base. This is the variables, and then maybe in my main is just importing. Okay, and then let's say this is my auth page. I will make sure my auth page whole thing is wrapped in the div, in the ID, and then I will start making all my stuff here. Okay, something like that. Okay, cool. So by doing this, it should work, except you need to do one extra thing. Okay, so this one took me a long time. This is a flask-assets thing. So like I said, if you see, flask-assets only knows that it needs to recompile the bundle if the files in here changes. Okay, so which means only if main.scss change, then it will be able to re-import all these files. But we are not changing main.scss anymore, right? Because it's always this. Sometimes you might add extra, but most of the time you don't touch this. You are touching, maybe you are touching the auth page SCSS, right? You're touching here. So this would not detect. We can make a test, okay? So like right now, oh, sorry, one more thing. So this thing needs to change to libsass, okay? Do I need to change this? This is the output, right? Output has to be CSS. Browser needs to understand CSS.
Where are the filters stored again?
Where are the what?
The filters stored.
The filter will just look into the package. Remember, we just install pip freeze.
Yeah.
So okay. So now if I do flash run, are you sleeping? No. Okay, so see my text color is actually gray, right? Okay, where is it?
333.
Where is it being applied? I don't even know. I think I put it in the body. Here. This one 3A. I don't know why it got.
Where's the bunch?
Okay, so anyway, if I look into this one, 96A7, right? Sorry, this one, FB36DC2F, right? FB2F. So if I were to change something in my, let's say, auth page, I just say, let's say in my base, I say, in my base SCSS, I say all font size needs to start with 18 pixel. I refresh, it doesn't change, right? If you look at it's still FB36DC2F, it's still this one. So what do? I need to use something called depends or depend. This is the last thing, then we are done. Depends, okay? Define additional set of files which are considered when determining whether a rebuild is required, okay? So we need to depends. So what we can do is here, we'll add one more thing called depends. And what do we want to depend on? Basically, we want to depend on everything that is in CSS/anything.scss. Okay?
Sorry, you do that so that it doesn't do what?
So that if I change anything in the CSS folder to the files that ends with SCSS, it will recompile. Previously, it doesn't. It will only look into these two files only, and these two files never change. Okay, so now if I refresh, I see the head. Now it's different, right? It's 51569. So if I go and change this to 180 pixel, 89 pixel, I refresh, it will change, and this one is 356. Okay, cool. That's all about assets. Okay. Any questions? Again, you might find this optional. It depends on how much front end you want to dedicate to. If you are like, I don't care, I just want some color, it's okay, up to you. Alright, I have to tell you this anyway, because I'm sure there are some front end developers here. Okay, cool. So Jingwen is going to talk about AWS very soon, so that you guys can work on something during the holiday. When do you guys want the AWS breakout? 5 minutes? 4 p.m? It's 3:48. 4 p.m. okay? Alright, so you guys just absorb all this, and then we will have videos, and then throughout the long holiday you guys can at least work on the rest if you want to, okay? Cool.